This episode of Heroes of the Horn is brought to you by Rachel Sedai of House Harris. I will not abandon you this side of death, Morgaze, but you abandon much when you abandon Andor to Gabriel.
Welcome to Heroes of the Horn, a Wheel of Time podcast. I am Sir Matt.
And I am Sir Ezra. Welcome to our Wheel of Time book club. The horn has sounded and we have answered the call. Today we are covering The Lord of Chaos, the prologue, and in our village council, we will be discussing your thoughts, your comments, your pigeons, and season 2 news.
Yeah, as you know, it feels good to be back. Okay, not that we've really left Wheel of Time, but just good to be back in the books, my friend, which is where we are at today. So for those of you guys who have been watching us during season 1, Ezra and I do cover the books. You can check out all of those if you want, right? You can check out all that content on the podcast over on Omni, iTunes, anywhere you can find podcasts, as well as here on YouTube. And we've gone through the books. We are currently on book 6, the very beginning, which is what we're going to be doing today, which is the prologue of book 6, Lord of Chaos, which I really loved, 1 through 4, which is Shadow Rising. I really liked Lord of Fires of Heaven, book 5. I kind of, knocked me down a little bit, but I'm back into Lord of Chaos here, book 6, and I'm way more enjoying it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too, Matt. People, it's so funny. You go to the forums and some people love that last book simply because of the last battle and the ending. There's one thing that really ticks people off here or there, and it's whatever. So it's interesting, in this 14 book series that you find some books you really love and some that you're like, I don't know, right? And sometimes it depends on who your favorite character is and what you wanted or expected from that character. So I think that's really interesting. Folks, also wanted to mention early on here that do not forget we have extended edition after this show already planned out. We also, my friend, have a very special spoiler edition brought to you by yours truly. That, you know what, Matt, on Bend the Knee, they call me Sir Ezra the Watchful. Over here, it's Sir Ezra the Spoils a Lot. Okay.
Wow.
Because sometimes I spoilers slip out on the show, and that's on me. Okay. So now we've got the spoiler edition where I can just go crazy on. There are so many characters mentioned in this prologue that I'm going to come back to, and we're going to kind of tackle over in the spoiler edition. So that's coming up, friends. Just be ready.
Yes, as we have some season 2 news we're going to dive into, as well as I said, some pigeons we've got, right? You guys can shoot us those at thehornofvalir@gmail.com. We'll read your sort of full theories, thoughts on the show. We try to keep this, just because I know we're doing this live on YouTube now, we try to keep this spoiler free up until obviously where we're at in the book. So try to keep it spoiler free for anything past this. This is still actually my first read of the series. So new information for me, right? Unfortunately, just in doing this kind of stuff, I do know some of the things. Again, this is kind of a re-intro since we're starting it kind of back up here, diving back into the books, and now we have some new people watching and stuff like that. So for me, there are obviously some things I know a little bit of. I've mentioned that before, but so glad to see people in here live commenting, and try to get as many of your quotes in here as well as we jump into this. So as I believe did you want to start with something or?
Yeah. So what I really wanted to do here is kind of, season 1 was so great. It was so awesome. Every week we were doing different things. I went out to Germany. It was crazy. Friends, I went out there and I've let this loose on a couple other podcasts, tied some knots, got married. Holy smokes, craziness out there. Appreciate Matt doing everything he did over here back in the States, keeping us going. My God, it was an awesome time. Such a big high for us. And we met so many new people. People came over and supported us on Patreon, Apple Premium. Literally can't thank you guys enough. It was a freaking wonderful ride. And so I just want to give some shout outs to some of our newest patrons. Amy Anderson, Dan Scott, Justin, Copy to Pasty, Aaron Bell, Rachel Harris, so on. Tons of other folks. We're going to actually try to figure out a way to get back to our in screens where we give you guys a shout out, maybe a roll across the screen, that kind of stuff, because I just love it. I so appreciate it. Also, yeah, we have our pigeons. It always sounds funny to me because over on Bend the Knee we say ravens, and it kind of has
Right.
a
I
better
know.
like weight to it, and the pigeons just seem weak. But hey,
Yeah.
it's a good old fashioned carrier pigeon. And some folks, weren't sure if we would read these, and I'm like, hey, no, you took the time to send this in. I definitely want to read it at the top of the show and get us going while Matt cues up some of that Wheel of Time season 2 news that we're going to have. So first off, we have Darren, who wrote us in and just said, hey guys, I really want to say thank you for the Heroes of the Horn podcast. I read the books years ago and was very excited about the television adaptation finally coming to fruition. I discovered your podcast about 2 months ago and have been using it as a refresher for all of the books. Your format is spectacular and a real treat for me, as I have forgotten how much stuff was packed into all of those pages. Yeah, no kid. I need the refresher. That's why I do the spoiler editions. It's I have to refresh my memory on these things. Hearing things from a new reader perspective also raises a lot of new questions I haven't thought of before, which has wiped the dust off of my Wheel of Time companion guide. On a final note, I also very much appreciate the fact that you two we don't swear a whole lot. We don't get super vulgar, right, Matt? I mean, that's just not something we normally do. Every once in a while,
Right.
you get this moment where it's like by the blood and ashes, and we gotta, roll with it, right? But yeah, very refreshing. He says, I travel heavily for work, so I listen to a lot of podcasts, and yours is one of the few that I feel I can put in and follow along with my kids. This has brought my 10-year-old son into the Wheel of Time fold, and he is now super excited to read The Eye of the World with me. Let's go. That's awesome. Love hearing that. After 2 months, I have completed all of your podcast episodes through The Dragon Reborn. The only question I have is this. Let's see. And I hope that it's not silly due to my completely missing something. Since Rand and the Dark One have squared off thousands of times with different results over infinite years, can we assume another dragon will be spun out of the pattern until the 7th spoke completes and starts over again? If that's the case, will there ever be a dragon who hears the inner voice of Rand, Althor, along with that of Luce Theron Telamon? Maybe I'm just confusing myself for no reason, but wanted to hear what you guys have to say. So that's Darren. Appreciate that pigeon. And Matt, that actually came up early on in our podcast. People were talking about the Dragon Reborn and how many times has he been reborn and all this kind of stuff. And you get to the the 7 ages and the 7 spokes of the wheel and the turning of the wheel and so on. Someone wrote us a really good pigeon at one point saying, yeah, I don't know that I like the story, but the idea that it's just kind of, you can't break actually the Dark Friends, and what was done in the TV show was that they wanted to break the wheel, break that loop that we're continuously in and things. So that's what the Dark One's trying to do and so on. But that's why you have the dragon to combat him. So I kind of think, yeah, I think you could say it might be Rand, whoever the most recent reincarnation is, I think would be probably who you would hear. But yeah, maybe a mixture. I don't know. I think it's a good question.
Is
So
there ever going to be need for a dragon in the future? I don't know.
that's the thing. Yeah,
there is always I know you'd have to go look it up, but I'm pretty sure, hasn't Brandon Sanderson been asked, like, is there any chance you could ever do more books that could take place in the future?
Which I think if the
of
show
course
is
it would.
successful, it wouldn't surprise. I mean,
the show has as much as a lot of us were not particularly fond of the final episode, the show was incredibly successful. I have the numbers here, actually. That's something we're going to dive into. Did you want to wait for any more pigeons for the end, or did you want to jump into the rest of these?
We'll just roll through the pigeons and then we'll dive into all that stuff, because you're right. Okay. Yeah, I think the numbers are cool, and we'll get to that. So yeah, let me finish these out. We've got a couple more here. Rewatching. Hey guys, this is from Arja Brand from the Netherlands. Let's go. We have people all over the place, man. I think that's just fascinating. I seriously thank you guys for writing us in and telling us where you're from too. I think it's really cool. Hey guys, was rewatching episode 8 and saw a shield rapidly closing on Moraine. This probably means she's been stilled, but has been tied off, which might dissipate into season 2. Just wanted to point that out. Merry Christmas. So again, I'm going back through catching up on all of these. We actually did a standalone video. I think it's coming out here in a week or two, or maybe already came out. The video that is Moraine stilled or is she shielded? Great conversation. I love it. I kind of just did it to poke the bear a little bit because I think a lot of people agreed that she's shielded. But hey, I like to stir the pot, Sir Matt. I like to.
Well, hey, when we get into later today, we're going to be talking about still, gentle,
Oh my, yes, we
and
are.
perhaps the differences of them. Yes.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah,
I can read this next one here from AJ if you're ready.
absolutely.
So, hello, my name is AJ, and I just started listening to the podcast this summer. I had intended to get caught up before the show premiered, but I got a bit sidetracked by life and only just listened to the Fires of Heaven Part 2. At the end of that episode, you were asking about New Spring. I don't know if you got any responses or read them in the few episodes I have left to catch up on, but regardless, I wanted to give you my 2 cents. Though the most through the most fortuitous circumstances, I happened to find New Spring at a Dollar Tree when I was 13. I was so excited that it was a prequel, which meant I didn't have to track down 7 other books to read it first, as was often the case with my Dollar Tree finds. So New Spring happened to be the very first Wheel of Time book I read. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way and suggest other first-time readers read it first. I know it's controversial, but I want my friends to experience this series the same way I did. I would hold so strongly to reading New Spring first in any reread of the series that I nearly didn't listen to the podcast because I couldn't imagine not reading New Spring first. 11 years later, New Spring is still my absolute favorite book of the series, with books 13 and 14 tied for second. Without spoiling it too much, I'll say this. New Spring gives us an entirely different look at Moraine, Suan, and Lan, back when they were young and new to the world and mildly excited about the path they're on. I don't care much for Moraine in the main series, but in New Spring, I relate to her on so many levels, it isn't even funny. Okay, that's a lie. I often have to stop reading because I'm laughing too hard over how much I relate to her. And New Spring is probably the only reason Lan is my favorite character. If I hadn't read New Spring first, I wouldn't like him very much at all to start, and probably wouldn't have gravitated much, and probably would have graduated more towards Tom or Matt for a favorite. The next part spoils just the tiniest amount of information for the very first chapter of New Spring. Which I think is probably okay to read. As for when it's okay to read New Spring again, I always personally suggest to read it first. But if you want to put it off spoiling any of the other books, that's understandable. It is safe to read it at any point after Eye of the World. The only thing that kind of spoiled by reading New Spring first is that you know the exact parameters of the foretelling that sets Moraine on her path to find the Dragon Reborn. With that added information, it's much easier to guess which of the two Rivers boys is the dragon, but there's still room for doubt, especially with Perrin. Other than that, the only big spoiler is Lan's history regarding Malcair. He says, I could write an entire essay singing the praises of New Spring and arguing that it should be read first, but I've said enough for now. Just wanted to give you my 2 cents since you specifically asked about my favorite book. Whatever you guys decide to read it, I'll be more than happy to read along, even though part of the reason I'm not caught up yet is because I wanted to step back and wait. So hope this helps. Avia Jane Aes Sedai of the Brown Aja.
Let's go. And this was a question we asked, and so I'm really happy to kind of hear that because I feel like yeah, we didn't. We chose not to do that, and to her point, I actually started off with Eye of the World. So that's kind of how I wanted Matt to experience it as well. So I didn't start with New Spring. So I thought, okay, yeah, let's have Matt start off the same way that I started off. And then I was also less familiar with it too. So I was kind of like, yeah, I don't really know that it'd be kind of a brand new read for me at the time we started this podcast because I didn't really know much about it at all. So that was really good information to have, and it's nice that she provided some context on what it would spoil and what you need to know because it was written later, and it was
Right.
sort of it became one of those prequels where a couple books are wrote, and then yeah, then Robert Jordan does that. So it's great, and the show incorporated a lot of that stuff, and it became important. And it is really cool to kind of get the backstory on Guitarra Morosa and the foretelling, what they knew, information, and I felt like that was really really cool. And so I'm actually I think if we went back now, I would be like it wouldn't
Right.
matter.
And we did the graphic novel of it. So I
Yeah.
kind of got like, just a quick sort of summary of it. So
Yep.
that's cool. So, okay, 2 more here. From Jack, just congratulating us on reaching 1,000 subscribers. Just started listening to Rosamund Pike audio version of The Eye of the World, and I think she's doing a great job. I haven't listened to that version of the audiobook yet, but I do want to at some point. But I only have so many Audible credits. And
Right.
yeah, that is all right. Hey guys, huge fan of the podcast. Been with you guys since day one. Used to listen to you guys over and over while working a boring retail job. I just want to share my thoughts on episodes 1 to 3 prior to 4 coming out. So again, we're just getting some backlog emails here. So this is somebody who didn't finish the season. I mean, as of this email. So just sort of his thoughts on it. Said I love the series. It's my second favorite fantasy series behind Lord of the Rings and fourth favorite franchise in the world. I have to say, though, I have been wildly disappointed in Rafe's interpretation. The inclusion of Perrin's wife was just so odd and not needed at all. Why create a character just to kill them off after 2 minutes of screen time and 1 or 2 lines? Such a fringe wife trope. I feel like introducing Master Luhan and Perrin killing him would have resonated with people so much better. Luhan is like a father figure to Perrin, and it would have given him nearly the same development. The CGI looks terrible, save for a few Trollocs. Shots and the fade. What is that scene of Moraine using the power? It looks like a CW show. Something obviously people have said quite a bit. Says didn't Rafe say the show budget for the show was massive? I'm happy for the two of you. The fact that you're enjoying the show as much as you are, I envy you. And he said, don't get me started on Tom, who can't sing. He said episode 1, 1.5 out of 5, episode 2, 2 out of 5, episode 3, 2 out of 5. Odds this email makes it into the show, like laughing emoji.
Right.
Hey, it did.
It did. Aiden. That's from Aiden, actually. I just looked it
Aiden,
up.
okay. There we go. Perfect. There you go, Aiden. Exactly.
Appreciate
We try to incorporate as much, whether you liked it or didn't like it, because I do think it is good to sort of represent the show in the books and in people who liked it and people who didn't like it, because healthy criticism is fair and warranted, and they do listen. I don't know that they listen to us, but they do listen to fan feedback. I mean, that is I think they just put out Amazon just put out a thing where they said, hey, let us know what you liked and didn't like about the show.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
And that's actually, if anything too, Matt, whether they actually read those or listen or not, it's the it still feels good to have them trying to do that and giving I mean, they freaking turned the Dusty Wheel, God bless him, into the after show. That is somebody who was literally just running a website for many years and close with Robert Jordan and reading the book. It's fantastic they did that.
But everybody knows that the official after show, the real party's right here on Here's to the Horn, because we were having like 300 people in and we were all partying hard.
We were like during the episode party, like we were watching it and then instantly turning it on. People were clicking in. It was crazy to watch the numbers run from like 40 people watching to like 200 in a matter of like 20 minutes, and I was like, holy smokes. So that was really cool. That was actually a lot of fun.
Okay, well, let's dive into really quick here some Wheel of Time season 2 news, my friend. So Wheel of Time was the biggest new series in the United States last year. So Wheel of Time was the most demanded show at 43.2 times more in its first 30 days than the average in any U.S. show, including shows like Netflix Arcane and Disney Plus's The Book of Boba Fett. So Wheel of Time was a very successful show for Amazon. So, I mean, they've already greenlit it till season 3. So hopefully, again, looking some of that fan criticism, I was actually pretty excited here and pretty shocked, actually, I should say. So these are the other 9 shows. I guess these were the top 10 most demanded shows in their first sort of 30 days. And I don't know exactly what qualifies as an average, because they don't necessarily say that. So number 10 was Shadow and Bone at 26.9 times more in demand than in another average series. I didn't watch that, but my mom did, and my mom has never read books and like fantasy books in her life, and literally loved the show so much that she's like, I have to go read the books. So
nice. Yeah.
And I know our good friend Jimmy, Sir Jimmy Fantasy Network, shout out to him. He said he watched it, he liked it. Number 9 was Chucky. I'll never watch that because I don't watch scary things. Number 8 was Squid Game, which actually, if you asked me and you gave me a list, I would say that Squid Game would have been the biggest show of last year.
Yeah, me too. I would have thought that as well. Because
it was massive when it kind of had that Tiger King stuff. I love Squid Game, man. I can't wait for season 2 of that.
Yeah.
That might be the most messed up thing I've ever seen in my life.
Episode 1 blew me. That I was like, I told Lottie, I was like, I don't know if you can watch this. I don't know.
Number 7 was Loki, which I liked. I think it was my second favorite of the Marvel stuff. Number 6 was Falcon Winter Soldier, which was my least favorite
Yeah.
of
I
the
didn't finish it.
the Marvel stuff. Number 5 was WandaVision, which was my most favorite of the of the Marvel stuff. Number 4 was Hawkeye, which
Okay.
Hawkeye's it's like my middle one. Number 3, Book of Boba Fett. Now, again, to be fair, they are only counting, I
The
guess, what
first
would
episode?
it would have to be the first episode,
Yeah.
because I would say now the Book of Boba Fett is probably eclipsed those numbers.
Yeah.
And if you guys want more Book of Boba Fett coverage, come check out Az and I's Star Wars podcast, Hyperspace Hangout, where we're gearing up for that last episode. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Number 2, Arcane, which is a League of Legends show. And Wheel of Time. And so this was 42.7 more demanded than any other, than like an average show. And Wheel of Time just beat it at 43.2. So Wheel of Time was the number 1 most demanded streaming show last year.
Wow. That is
of new series.
New. Sure.
So I don't
didn't include The Witcher in there, and
doesn't include The Witcher or whatever else. Now, I would have to say that this coming year, I cannot imagine Wheel of Time. I think Wheel of Time will have good numbers.
Yeah.
But I cannot imagine any show for a new series topping Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, that'll be crazy.
Lord of the Rings. I will probably be. I'm going to be honest. Lord of the Rings might be the number 1 streaming show this coming year, and that includes Obi-Wan, perhaps Stranger Things season 4,
and
The Witcher. Well, never mind.
I was going to ask you. I was going to
say, never mind. I forget.
Yeah,
I get. Yeah, because that is technically, yes, that would qualify as a
like 1 and 2. You could go either way on, like, you just.
It's going to be that in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I think period. I think they're going to be 1 and 2 period.
Right. Yeah, me too.
No, but I think House of the Dragon will be the number 1 show.
Yeah, that will be
and
so
number 1 new streaming show.
Yeah, well, and actually, really, they've we talk all the time, but like Game of Thrones, the wave that had, and then also just the House of the Dragon. It's TV. It's already proven itself. It's still in the same hands. This is different. Lord of the Rings is now in Amazon's hands. What was, it was a new line before. So
right, Mandalorian season 3 is gonna be big too. So
yeah.
So there's that. So on to another piece of Wheel of Time news. So this comes from CBR.com, which I think is one of those sort of potential clickbait sites, like Screen Rant, that just sort of report things. They don't necessarily, but it does seem like more and more people are sort of reporting it. So this is saying that Screen Silver Tours recently added a castle in Prague to its Wheel of Time tour, identifying the sprawling estate as the real world stand-in for a royal palace. And all eyes are pointing to this being Camelin.
Okay. In Prague.
Going to Camelin next season. Yes. Well, that's where they film almost that all. It's almost all filled over there in the Czech Republic, Prague.
I wonder what the actual do they have the location? They don't have do they have the castle or the location?
Castle? Yes, they do. I will pull it up.
Do they really? Okay, that'd be kind of cool. No, this is cool.
I can't pronounce it because I do not speak.
That's all right. That's
Czech or
right.
Prague or whatever. But yes, let me get it pulled up here while we dive into.
Cool. Lottie and I's photographer was actually from Prague, so that's pretty cool. Maybe I have a source. I'll have to hit her up and see what's going on down there. What did she see? But this is really cool that we have Camelin. I think oh gosh, I was following some of the Madeline Madden has been posting a lot with that looks cool.
And we don't know that and just because it doesn't mean that we're gonna, the outside of it could be CG, but they could use the inside of this for rooms so that we're gonna see in the show. You know what I mean? It's one of those things or the grounds, and they're gonna have sets built and all of these things. Because that does not seem very Camelin to me, just in my sort of mind. But at the same, that's where they're filming. So
yeah. No, that's cool. I like that a lot, and I think that's really, really neat. I was trying to pull up some of the actors here. They've been posting some images, and the girl that is cast as Elaine has been in all of them, which is really cool. So that's been neat to to see them kind of bonding. We even saw the new fellow who's cast as Matt has been there with them. So if you follow their social medias, uh, it's fantastic. So Madeline
Yeah.
underscore Madden is the actress that plays Egwene, and she
Right.
actually posts quite a bit of their
This
behind the
room,
scenes
this
cast.
room, I could see you get all this stuff out of there. You put a throne in there, and
Yeah, that's cool.
So now let's dive into and then we will dive back into the reread or the read through here. Some season 2 theories.
Yeah.
If we are now that we potentially know that we are going to be filming things in Camelin, what does that say about season 2? Will we, because you and I had been theorizing that we would meet Elaine in the tower, but perhaps we could be meeting Elaine in Camelin and going back to Camelin first.
Well, now this is interesting because see what in the Eye of the World, Rand meets Elaine there first. Okay. It's actually something people brought up. There was an issue in season 1. Moraine has yet to meet Tom, I believe, has not met Tom Maryland. And there's, spoilers ahead here. There's a big connection between those two, and their meeting is important in the Eye of the World. Rand meeting Elaine and Camelin is a big deal. He meets Gawain, he meets Elida, who sees him and has a foretelling. So, and I don't. People had talked about Leandrin being the fill-in for Elida. I don't think Leandrin ever came across Rand either. Did she? Did she ever have some
No,
FaceTime with him? I don't think so.
not in Eye of the World.
Right. And it's what I even mean, like in the show. I don't think that Leandrin actress saw Rand or had any FaceTime with Rand, as far
Not
as
that
I
we
know.
saw, but it certainly seemed. I think it's
'Cause
possible.
yeah, it may be because we have the yellow sister going and taking when Matt's getting healed, but it's kept a super big secret.
All
And
right.
you don't so the red Aja is told about Matt. Where I'm going with this is that if because we're theorizing here, right? If you say to me that Leandrin's supposed to be the fill-in for Elida, well, the whole point there is that Leandrin or Elida, whoever it would be, has a foretelling. Like they see Rand and they actually it stimulates a foretelling. So I guess if we're going to see Elida, it would be important that Rand comes across Elida and that Rand sees Elaine. If Elaine first meets Matt or Tom, or I don't know that Tom would be there, right? So that's going to be rough because Tom has a crazy history with Camelin and more gays. But like, how is Elaine introduced to our main group? The way it's done in like, I guess she could show up at she could show up at the tower with the girls and they could be getting trained. And then Matt is going to have possibly his battle with Gawain and Galad, and then he will strike off with Tom on a mission, right? Because the Amerlin gives Matt a note to take to Queen Morgase, to Camelin. And that's when he goes there and he figures out Lord Gabriel is there and everything. So I guess my theory is that like Matt and I have been wondering, where does Rand go in season 2? And instead of chasing the horn to Kyrian, maybe they chase the horn to Camelin. You know what I mean? Like that because Kyrian is that big city, but there's no one there really important that Rand has to meet, I guess. He goes back there and he finds Tom, and it introduces Moraine's kind of city, the history of King Layman, the Aiel War, all that kind of stuff. Some dark friends, the ways, all that kind of whatever. But you can still do all of that. Like you could have Matt, you could have Podon Fane go to Camelin. There is still a way gate there, just like there is in Kyrian,
Yes.
and he can go to wherever it is that he's going to go. If they want to go to Tolman Head, to Falma, they could do that, But so that's I guess what I'm thinking. I think Camelin will replace Kyrian. I guess is my big thought or theory prediction.
Yeah, I think so too. I think I'm with you on that. And you just got to think about other things too, like well, let me bring up something else too, really quick.
Yeah.
So I believe I have this too. So here's another one of these articles, same website. And it sounds like at some point there was an interview with Rafe Judkins, obviously the showrunner, um, a little bit after the season, and it was talking about relationships, specifically Egwene and Perrin, which sort of happens in the show, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Says the Blue Time showrunner Rafe Judkins briefly confirmed the connection between Egwene and Perrin in season 1 of the show will likely continue in season 2 and could inform future relationships on the show. I think you do see in the books this idea that did Perrin have feelings for Egwene? We've milked that a little here. Judkins
mhm,
told CBR in an exclusive interview. I think it will continue. The showrunner added that while fans have been vocal about not loving the possibility of a romance between the two characters, it was important to him to establish the connection before introducing other storylines. Each of those characters goes on to have very important relationships. Egwene with Gawain, and then Perrin with Fail. He continued, and so those relationships we will also take those. We will also take those as two big relationships that are really foregrounded in the books, and so we'll take them and really run with them too. I think any real romantic relationship that we do have in the foreground, we want to use. So we've yet
mhm.
to meet a Fail or a Gawain, but we could meet a Gawain at Camelin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think if we're hunting for the horn too, you could throw in Fail. There's speculation that Fail has been cast and that we'll see her in season 2 here. So if you wanted to, that's an interesting thought that you might
Right.
have Egwene with Perrin be a bit more romantic, but then they come across their lovers in
Hmm.
Camelin or in season 2, which sort of separates the two of them. So maybe out the gate we'll see a stronger sort of tie between them as Rand does his thing and you know wanders.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were saying, I just wanted to pull up the map here too. You were saying some of this stuff, maybe Kyrian gets cut out a little bit.
Right.
I mean, Camelin's, sort of next door, one less place to film. I
Yeah.
don't think we know that we're not going to, they've said, we can't obviously go to every single place. You and I are already speculating that, a lot of the stuff that happens at the end of
The Great Hunt.
the Great Hunt is going to be happening at Tyr instead of,
Hmm.
God, where's it
Balma.
happen?
Yeah.
Falma, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Falma. Right. And Falma's way over here dealing with the Shan Chan, which obviously we know they're coming, but I just think it's all going to sort of take place in Tyr, Kalendor. That's how you finish maybe season 2, run that parallel sort of Great Hunt, Dragon Reborn in there.
Yeah.
But he did specifically mention when Fail and Gawain. We believe Fail is going to be cast, and I do think it is a good idea to bring her in next season. That way we can move off any of the Perrin and Egwene stuff. Which I think I get it. I guess you're using that to set up. Maybe you use it somehow to sort of speed along Perrin and Fail.
Yeah. Yeah, what's interesting, yeah, either way, wherever they find each other, because it would be interesting if, like Gawain, we could either meet him at Camelin or they've already maybe Elaine and Gawain and Galad are over at the tower, right? They could do it
Right.
either way, and maybe there's that sort of first cracker division, which is like Egwene is kind of into Gawain and Galad, and maybe Perrin's back. They might go with the whole route where the boys are separated again from the girls, and they're doing their own thing, and Rand pretends like he's going to go. Remember in the Great Hunt, he acts like he's peacing out, and then
Right.
she shoves the dragon banner in on him, and he goes on the
Mhm.
hunt for the dagger and the horn.
Right.
So,
Well, I think Rand's gonna be way over here. I think they're speeding him along. I think he's gonna do a lot of the IEL way stuff by himself. That he does in, like, I don't know, Shadow Rising, right? And then he's gonna bring an army, because in the Dragon Reborn, you don't really see a lot of Rand. He's kind of just wandering, right? His
mhm.
way down. I mean, down to Tyr really is kind of what he's doing. We see him at like little campsites and stuff like that. But I think Rand's probably over here in the IO Waste. He's gonna meet up with some of these people. Who knows, man? Maybe he has a one-on-one with Couladin next season. And it's like we're just speed a lot of that along, and then he brings an army, an IEL army over um to Tyr, and we do Kalendor. You know what? They could also move that back to like season 3 and have some of the stuff that's like Shadow Rising. Maybe season 2 ends with Rand being pronounced the Kara Karn,
Mm.
And then
Wow.
we do like Kalendor stuff and like
Season 3.
season 3, like the Blow the Horn of Valir season 3.
That, I mean, really,
You
yeah.
really could shift some stuff around.
Yeah, and again, we've already seen, I mean, I was still surprised by season 1 being kind of
So close
so close and starting in the Two
to the
Rivers and ending.
framework.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they moved. There's a lot of inner story stuff, but the framework is
Start
sort
and
of
finish
is
was.
start and finish is Eye of the World.
Yeah, because if you tell me right now they're gonna start and finish, like, the Great Hunt, like, start off chasing this thing to Kyrie, and well, that it sounds like Camelin is the location, and Kyrie's not been mentioned, so how do you get the events to match, I guess, without Kyrie? And well, all that stuff has to take place in Camelin, which would mean, maybe Rand doesn't go to the waste. Here's my problem with Elaine being, cast, and like Elaine is either at Camelin, we're going to see her there at first, or we're going to see her in the White Tower. But
Right.
Rand, when will Rand meet Elaine? That's, I think, the big
Right.
question is, does he meet her at the tower? Does he meet her at Camelin? Does he meet her at Falma? Does he meet her at Tyr? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a crazy thing because he has to meet her at some
Well,
point.
another character is Matt. Is Matt we saw at the White Tower, CGI, however, had green screen him in, whatever they did there,
Yeah.
whether Barney Harris filmed it and they reused footage, whatever they did there. Is Matt going to wake up at the White Tower and wreck Gawain and Galad like he does in the books?
Right.
And
Which
then
would mean,
by that mean that Elaine's already there. We could
right.
go back to Camelin.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because that's why, I mentioned that, like, Matt's whole arc actually takes him to Camelin with,
Tom.
Yeah, and, like, they're going to deliver a message and all that kind of stuff, but that's book 3. So,
Right.
book 2 is just this whole chasing down, so he's not there for the chase, right? So the chase is left. This is where it gets really crazy because Perrin and Matt now are gonna have to chase down that horn. The dagger doesn't really matter as much. It's like Matt's been healed as much as possible. Maybe he goes through another full healing in the White Tower or something.
Loyal seems like they
Somebody
could
heal
they
Loyal. Get
Jesus.
him off the ground.
They
I can't believe
they
they put him
might
on the ground. I
they
swear to
might
God.
they might change the nature of the dagger. I'm almost starting to believe they already did change the nature of the dagger to be you using it. There's a darkness attached to the user of it, not so much a darkness attached to kill, like attacking someone with it.
Sure.
So maybe
Yeah.
you could change it to like it's supposed to make you more powerful, but doesn't make the dagger itself
Yeah.
less or more powerful.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. That would be, yeah, because
That would be one way to explain Loyal getting attacked by it.
right, right. Because yeah, you already have, like I think it's interesting also to speculate, like, where's Pot on Fane going? All of these can be things we'll probably pull out later and do special little fuller detailed things. Because Pot on Fane, he has the horn. Like, is he going to take it back to the Two Rivers, and that leads Perrin there to the Two Rivers, and you kind of blend his whole going back there and fighting him? I mean, or is it like
Right.
does he have to go to Falma first? Like, he will lead them somewhere. Pot on Fane will either lead them to Tomon Head, he'll lead them to Tyr, or he'll lead them to the Two Rivers or something, right? Like, those are, we got to figure out where we want to finish in season 2. I mean, Rafe already
Right.
knows, but we're trying to theorize and speculate as to where it's gonna,
Where it's gonna go.
climax.
So
Yeah.
and there's gonna be plenty and plenty and plenty of speculation and stuff of season 2 and how they're all gonna do it. But as this is we're gonna dive back into the books now. So let's dive into let me just say, because I know we have some new people here. So for those of you guys who haven't been following along on our sort of read through, this is my first read through of the books. As I've said, Eye of the World for me was great. You're just sort of reading through it for the first time. I loved the ending of it. Great Hunt is my favorite, is still my number one
Mhm.
so far. The Dragon Reborn of the first 3, I was like, it's my least favorite. Just because it was sort of shorter. I felt like not really a whole lot happened in the book. There's not very much Rand. Shadow Rising, I felt like was the strongest book. Next to the Great Hunt. The Great Hunt, like, I think the Shadow Rising start to finish is probably the best book of the first 5.
Mhm.
I think I just love the ending of The Great Hunt so much
Yeah.
that it's like the ending of The Great Hunt is so amazing
Yeah.
that it's just like I just
Yeah.
can't. It's like the first thing I think of when I think of Wheel of Time, and I'm just like, it's just so sick. So, but start to finish, Shadow Rising is probably the best book.
Mhm.
Um, Perrin telling the White Cloaks off, and the scene there where he's, he fights Slayer, right,
Mhm. Mhm.
in the dream world, I thought was super cool. And then Rand and Cooladin, like, the Karakarn and all of this
Right.
stuff. And it seems like, okay, these two are gonna fight.
Right.
And then in Lords of Chaos, man, or Fires of Heaven starts off, and it's like I'm so pumped about Perrin. It's the first time I felt like I was really enjoying Perrin.
Mhm.
Where I was like, I'm so like stoked. Perrin just told these like White Cloaks off. We're gonna like things are about to get real serious. Perrin's not even in the book.
Yep.
And we start off and it's like Elida at the tower. I'm like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like so pumped leaving it. And then I will, say it one more time is I'm still just so disappointed by the fact that Cooladin was killed off book, off screen.
Yeah.
It was just so upsetting for me. That's one area I think the show could improve upon. And I get people's argument for it is that Cooladin wasn't necessarily important, but it's like, well, if he wasn't important, then why was the last part of Shadow Rising about him, essentially?
Mhm.
And I still feel like you could have just done it in a cool way where Matt shows up and you get to at least just see Matt like step in and be like, yeah, you're not fighting Rand, you're fighting me. And then he just like kills him. Like,
Yeah.
whatever. That would be cool. That would be cool. I just wanted to
Right.
see it.
Right.
And then the stuff with Moraine at the end, our good buddy Jimmy, right, Fantasy Network,
Yep.
did say
Shout out.
to us he sort of felt like it felt kind of shoehorned in, a little rushed there at the end.
Yeah.
With it's like Lanfear kind of comes out of nowhere, and then Moraine RKOs are out of nowhere, essentially, right? Um and then the circus chapters, it was a little unnecessary. I enjoyed like the idea of them. That's something, again, I think the show can improve on. So Lords of Chaos kind of left, or Fires of Heaven sort of left me with a little bad taste in my mouth. I was like,
Mhm.
man, I think this is the first time I was like, is this the slog, right, that everyone talks
Yeah.
about? Is this the slog? But then, wow, as soon as I fire up Lord of Chaos, man, I keep getting it mixed up.
Yeah.
As soon as I fire up Lord of Chaos, boom, back in the saddle. And
Right.
so yeah, just absolutely pumped for this book. Yeah, those darned circus chapters, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just to give, because I know Matt and we again shout out to Jimmy, wonderful guy, great content creator. But I get it. The Fires of Heaven thing we had early on in our live stream here. I think 5 or 6 people who are like, Fires of Heaven is great. And so just to validate people who do think it
Right.
is awesome. I'm with, to me, the way that the Great Hunt ends, that epic scene, the battle in Teleron Riyadh in the dream world is pretty high up there in terms of Ravine, when he's yelling,
Right.
Ravine, and he's just like going for him, So that I actually sometimes forget Moraine does what she does there. I'm like, oh yeah, we kind of whatever. But if you're a Moraine, if you're really locked in on Moraine's story,
Fan.
then it
Yeah.
does. I can see how it kind of gets you like, what's going
Yeah,
on
I
here?
mean, yeah,
You know?
and I think that's the thing too, is it all sort of depends on, because I have felt like, with the exception of Nynaeve, and all I've ever been told is that once you get to a certain point, Nynaeve becomes awesome.
Yeah.
And I will say in the show, I'm when
Oh yeah.
Nynaeve is with Lan, which I think is one of the best things they've done, and
Yeah.
it's kind of the same way I feel about her in the books, is that when she's with Lan and she's sort of not as uptight, I guess is the
Yeah.
word, then I enjoy her more. And so, I'm sure that at some point I will. But I would say up to this point, my least favorite character is hands down Nynaeve. And so I think it's just sort of which characters do you enjoy? Which characters
Yeah.
do you not? Everyone talks about how they hate Fael, but I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I'm not there yet.
Right.
And I'm just sort of, I
Yeah, you're
don't
not. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I don't dislike Fael. I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean,
Right.
she's,
And that's
she's fine.
See, that's a great comparison, Matt. Like the Fail versus Nynaeve. So Nynaeve, for some people, starts off kind of low and then gets really high. Whereas Fail, I feel like starts off kind of like very intriguing, very interesting, and then hits a low point for a hot second. And then people are
And
like,
some people just
whoa,
don't. Some people don't forgive it,
they don't
or
come back from it. Yeah. And
they
it's
don't
like,
come back. Yeah, and I think yeah, and so I think that I think all of the, I mean, the Fires of Heaven is not a bad book by any stretch of the means. I mean, I
it's just
think
not one
it's
that you were locked in
no,
on.
it
Did
wasn't
you?
one that I wasn't as into. But again, I think the thing with the Wheel of Time books, at least in my experience so far, is you're going to like certain books more, maybe not so much based upon the plot, but based upon a certain character's arc, because you're more dialed in to specific characters than others.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why everyone's going to like this book more than this. And that's one of the best things about it, is that the characters are also intriguing, and everyone's going to connect with different characters for different reasons. And
Right.
like, and then you will like obviously this book more because it's more focused, or you like this person's arc specifically in this book as opposed,
Yeah.
as opposed to others. Like I really love Tom. I
Yeah.
really love Matt.
Right.
So that,
Right.
again, for me, it's like Great Hunt's like, it's the ending of Great Hunt is like so
Right.
amazing because it's pretty Matt heavy, right? It's like a big Matt has a massive moment at
Hmm.
the end of
Yeah.
the Great Hunt, and so it's such a great. That's why I'm so drawn to that. And then I love Rand, right? So
Right.
that's why I wasn't as big into the Dragon Reborn, because I was like, Rand's barely even in this.
Yeah, and actually something in this book that you'll notice. So I like Min a lot. I'm a big fan of Min, especially in the book. I know we had some. So the Min I saw, I'm waiting to see more on Min in the show. But I really like Min in the book, and so anytime she's doing her thing, I'm locked in. She was one of my favorites. But yeah, let's say you're a Perrin guy. I mean, geez, cow, this last book would have been hard to read, right? You're like, when's he coming in? And he does it, and that's actually a risk that I think Robert Jordan ran, which is like you build up these characters who are pretty awesome, and then you just have them sit on the bench. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, that's tough, for people to get through. So yeah, it is what it is. But but I think now though, what I've heard from Matt just initially, and we're about to find out, is that the Lord of Chaos prologue got us locked back in here, which is good. Feeling that.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, again, it's one of those things where you're gonna like certain characters more than others. The whole deal here. So,
Yeah.
okay, so let's dive into the prologue here. So this chapter is massive. By the way, we've normally been doing the prologues by themselves, just for the sake of doing the prologue by themselves, because they're also important and different.
Right.
This one is enormous. I believe the audiobook, which is what I listen to, is like a 3-hour chapter.
Yeah, there are 11 point of views. Yeah.
There are 11 point of views. So we're going to be taking this, I guess in a way, sort of slowly here, and just sort of going through each point of view, stopping, talking about it. Here we go. So
Yeah.
we start off right with Demondred's point of view, right? In the setting, and so we're in Sheo Ghul. So already it's like, wow, things are like
Wow.
getting real serious. Okay.
Hmm.
So Demondred steps out of a gateway and onto the slopes of Shao Ghul. Looking around, he sees Myrddraal blades being forged in the valley of Trakandar. Suddenly, a too-tall half-man appears and introduces itself as Shaidar Haran, which means hand of the dark in the old tongue. It takes Demondred to the pit of doom, where the Dark One demands information on the events of the world. Demondred reports that Ravine is dead and that other Forsaken have vanished. The Dark One already knows and lets Demondred know what happens to traitors. When the Forsaken assures his master that he will obey as commanded, the voice from the boar asks if he would like to be nameless. Then it gives him a message that causes tears of joy to run down his face. And he specifically names Lanfear as being gone.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So this is let me read just a couple things here just to get us started. I won't read from every point of view, but just a few here. So yeah, he steps out, as you said, on Sheo Ghul here. Lightning streaked up at the clouds. This whole thing, slow thunder rolled, you know what I mean? And it's described so well. He released the one power immediately, and he's walking in. He's talking about that. He's describing the place. and he comes across, here it is. You said that the swords of the Murdraw were being forged. There was water of a sort, an inky rivulet oozing down the rocky slope beside a gray roofed forge. Hammers rang inside with every ring. White light flared in the cramped windows. A ragged woman crouched in hopeless heap against the forge's rough stone wall, clutching a babe in her arms, and a spindly girl buried her face in the woman's skirt. Prisoners form Prisoners from a raid down into the borderlands, but no doubt. But so few. The Murdraw must be gnashing their teeth. Their blades failed after a time and had to be replaced, no matter that raids into the borderland had been curtailed. So, like, the way it's pretty, graphic, but the way they, use people to kind of create their blades is terrible. It's scary, right? And you're like, "Oh my god, this is dark. This is a darker start to this." And you can feel it. You can really feel the Dark One's presence here, and it's a scarier scene. I think it's going to be, again, it's one of those reasons why this is the beginning of this. Children are sobbing, the hammers are ringing, they're captured here. It's awful, and I feel like this is one of those reasons why the Wheel of Time, when this starts, when we get to a scene like this, we said it's going to be graphic, it's going to be darker, it's going to season 1, I felt like wasn't crazy in terms of like, well, I don't know, that Maiden of the Spear, or the Rand's
Right.
mom scene was pretty wild, but still we're going to see some darker tones, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No, and it's cool because we've heard about the Dark One this entire time, and now we're finally seeing, the Dark One and speaking to the Dark One, not an agent of the Dark One,
right?
The Dark One.
There he is. Yes. So Matt,
this isn't the Dark One. This is Demandred, but yes.
Yeah. And so here we have, we actually get some of the words coming back to Demandred. And one of the things when he's asked, would you be nameless? Would you be first, among the others? He says, I wish only to serve you, great Lord, however I may, nameless. Then listen and serve. Hear who will die and who will live. I mean, huh? He told him what? And so very, very interesting. There's also, let me see if I can find it here, a character that is important. I want to find his description. The Murdraw that shows up, Shadar Haran, right? It's very, the way this Murdraw interacts with Demandred is very different from how other Murdraw interact with him. So we know there's something special about this Murdraw in particular. And Shadar Haran is a big deal, and we'll track him kind of throughout the series and talk about him. But he's not any normal Murdraw or Fade, if you will. So yeah.
By the way, I will say, one of the things I did like about the show was the way they portrayed the Fades in the Murdraw.
Yeah,
I thought it was a very cool look. And I thought, let me see, just trying to get it pulled up here. I do think it ended up here. Here you go. Just a quick look. I think it looks close to what a lot of the fan pictures and everything has been. They look menacing. They look weird. I was particular. That was one thing I thought was cool. Way better. They look way better than the Trollocs to me.
Yeah, they did a great job on the Murdraw. I think they knew they had to really got to get that right. You can improve on the Trollocs, but yeah.
Okay, so now let's shift. So now we shift gears and we're with Nynaeve, right? So Nynaeve studies Leanne and Suan through the Adam with Moghedin's power. Suan complains about the time that Nynaeve is wasting by trying to heal Stilling. Both women have more important matters to see when Nynaeve mentions that she feels something torn or cut within the women. Moghedin lets it slip that Stilling was called severing in the Age of Legends. Nynaeve hands Suan the Adam bracelet to try on, and she confirms that she can feel Moghedin's emotions, but is not able to channel through her. It is the same for Leanne. Suddenly, Elaine storms into the room, scaring everyone half out of their wits, and tells the other women that Shiriam's council is sending an embassy to Camelin, but Elaine is not allowed to join them. She does not believe that her mother is dead, but Suan brings up events that Morghese would not have let happen if she were still alive. Elaine says that it is her right to go to Camelin to secure the throne, but the Aes Sedai and Saidar will not let the daughter heir go near the Dragon Reborn until they know how far they can trust him, especially since they have heard of his amnesty, right? Rand intends to gather men who can channel and, says you can no longer still them. That was, something that happened in the last one. Basically, hey, you leave those men alone. Right?
Yes, he
Big
does.
deal. Big deal.
Big deal. And that actually really sets off the Tarvalin witches. Okay.
Yeah,
We'll call them what
that's
they
what I
are.
call them.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So Suan and Leanne know something about the embassy and tells the girls the little they know. 9 sisters and men are going. Then the 2 women leave because they can no longer put off their work. Both Nynaeve and Elaine have gained a lot of credit due to questioning Mogadine and coming up with information from the Age of Legends. They also learn about Dark Friend's plots from her and make the news seem to come as reports from Suan and Leanne's agents.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. I mean, Moghedien, whoever, is teaching them. They're learning through her. They have her collared, if you will, and they're able to force her to teach them various things. And they're learning some stuff now. Suan and Leanne are in on this. Nynaeve is starting to grow curious as to what it means to be stilled. It's described here as has been torn or has been cut away, and so she's kind of probing, trying to figure that out. And yeah, they are also some Dark Friend plots are revealed, and they are passing those over to Suan and Leanne, and who they're basically saying, "Hey, we're still relevant because we have a network of eyes and ears that we can give to Shiriam and her council in Salidar." So yeah, that's interesting. And just so folks remember, the White Tower has split, and this is the Rebel Aes Sedai. This is Shiriam and her group, and that's kind of where we're at right now. And yeah, this whole bit about like Elaine wants to go back. I mean, the rumor is Morghese has been killed,
Right.
and that's why Rand went there. That's why he
Yeah.
calls out Ravine and everything, and he's trying to feels like he's failed, and he feels like he's hurt Elaine. Like Elaine's not going to forgive him for this. So
Right. I can't say not his fault, but
I know, Rand, they're forsaken. Dude.
I know, but okay. So we shift to Elaine's point of view. Outside of the room, Elaine wants waves to Birgette. Well, I think it's Birgetta now is the way they did.
Is that how they said
in
it?
the show?
Really?
Well,
Yeah.
I feel like everybody pronounces it differently, but in the show, I feel like it was Birgetta, right, or Brigida,
Yeah.
who is trying to play with Jarl and Sev, 2 boys who have come with them from Samara. Mogadine says that they are acting as apathetic as they were when she picked them up as part of her disguise. When Garth Bryn rides by, Elaine remembers that she has heard about him recruiting the Hall's army. Darting through the crowd, she encounters Anaya and Jaina, who praise her and tell her to be proud of her discoveries. They think it's marvelous that she is able to make Terangrial. But neither they nor anyone else really knows that the bracelet and necklace were the first she ever made. Elaine wants to see Min before she leaves and finds her at the River Elder. They talk about Suan wanting Min to spy on Rand, and both confess their love for him. Although neither of them wants to give him up, they also do not want to risk their friendship and lose one another.
Well, I read an article where Robert Jordan talked about this, and he had like 2 girls who didn't want to not be friends, but they both liked him, and so they said, "Let's share him." I mean, that's literally kind of where this. I'm serious. Like it's
Right.
at the end of Audible. He talks about there's an interview out there too, and it's just crazy. It's just kind of a younger man's, whatever,
Right.
and that's what they discuss, which is like, hey, I like you, and I don't want to hurt your feelings, but they're both almost bound to him
Right.
in a way. They feel connected. I mean, Elaine's already been making out with him like crazy in Tyr,
Well,
and they're super
Avienda has
close.
been doing a lot more than making out.
Avian is doing a lot more. Holy smoke! And Min though has
I mean,
been
it's
there.
not Rand. It's not Rand's fault.
No, it ain't. No, it's not.
It's not Rand. It's not Rand's fault. All
No.
these women like him.
Right. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. And Min was there, Lanfear, right? In the end of book 2, looks right at Min and says, "Yeah, you can have him for a while. You can take care of him for a bit until I'm ready to claim him." Well,
Oh,
right? That didn't go so well because Moraine said, "I'm gonna run you through this red door and you're out."
yeah.
So,
Sheesh.
but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, but crazy, right? Okay, let's move on to the next one here. There's a lot to get through.
yeah.
So we shift to Fail, right? Fail holds court every afternoon despite the fact that the manor house is not finished yet. Perrin should be there as well, but he does not like passing judgment on people that he grew up with. Sharmad Zephyr and Rhea Oven have come to ask which of them had the right to Will Alcine. Fail sends them to the wisdom with that matter. Sen Bui replaces the two women and complains about outlanders bringing strange ways into the two rivers, and about Master Hornval, the tile maker, and competition for Sen Bui, taking up useful hands that could be put to work. Fail knows that Sen has taken on helpers himself and reminds the old Thatcher that the manor's roof is not finished yet, and that she will have to ask Master Hornval about his tiles if it is not done soon. More petitioners come. Aspara Solomon wants to deal with herbs and cures and is directed to the women's circle. John Ayelen and Thad Torfin dispute the boundaries of their fields and are to split the difference between them. Two Damani miners think they have seen signs of gold, silver, and iron in the region. Fail allows them to search and give a tenth of what they find to Perrin. Lyle Morsara wants to open a carpet weaving business and promises the first carpet to Fail. After the Terraboner woman, the wisdoms of the two rivers enter. Daisy Conger, Adele Galen, Elwyn Taran, and Mail Azir complain about 3 more boys having run off because of the stories they heard from Perrin. Milla admits that she is frightened because the weather is most unnatural, and Fail reminds them of the hardness of Two River folk, which seems to reassure them. Fael then goes outside to Perrin, who is watching Tam and Aram practice the sword. He says that he feels Rand tugging at him. When he tells her that he wants to leave the Two Rivers, she decides to go with him, and no matter how many arguments he starts.
Is he starting the arguments? Is Perrin starting? I don't know if he is, my friend. But here's the thing. I do
Yeah.
know that Fail has set herself up here to be in charge, and people are coming to her with all these different problems, and she really does. It's kind of cool because they propped up Perrin as Lord Perrin, and she is setting all these different little matters in order. So you have like the wisdom coming in, the new wisdom. You have people kind of trying to, like the miners, for example. Yeah, she just makes like executive decisions, which is great because Perrin needs that because he's kind of like, when things really come to kind of a head, he will step in and do what he needs to do. But Fael's like running the ins and outs, if you will. And it's really kind of cool because people have a lot of respect for her, and she comes off really well, really, really likable. And it's great. She's also keeping an eye out for any of these other women that might be eyeballing Perrin, So
Right.
she's keeping an eye out there. The funny thing, Will Alcine, 2 girls coming to say like who has claim to him. It's kind of it's a little crazy, but it's the Two Rivers, and so just kind of fun. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's great. I think that chapter with her, it gets you right back in because that was what was missing in the Fires of Heaven for a lot of people. So now you got Fael's
There's no
perspective,
Fael and Perrin. Yeah.
right? And she's thinking very fondly of Perrin. What do we need to do next? And you get that. Oh, the Two Rivers. When it first starts off, they talk about the rest that they needed, the time that they got, like a relaxation because they're about to go on a great arc. That's going to be full of adventure and everything. So yeah, really cool.
Okay. Let's move on to the next one, which is Gawain's point of view. Gawain checks the position of his men who are prepared to fight Aiel. Jaiso and Hal, 2 younglings, have not seen any so far, and the latter is doubtful that an Aiel could hide in the bushes around them. From the distance, Gawain sees 3 wise ones, who are Savannah, Tervara, and Desane, who approach to talk the Aes Sedai. Before they left Tarvalin, Corian made him swear to keep his mission secret. They are on their way to Kyrian, where the 6 Aes Sedai with him are going to ask the Dragon Reborn to accompany them to the tower with the younglings for an escort of honor. After a short while, a peddler named Mil Tessin approaches the younglings and wants to sell his things. Gawain asks for news of the world and learns that Rand has taken Kyrian and Andor. Rumor says Morghese is dead and that the Dragon Reborn killed her. Instinctively, Gawain grabs Mil's coat and wants to know about the daughter heir. It is said that Rand killed her too, but the peddler is not sure, and so Gawain intends to take revenge. First of all, I don't trust any peddler.
No, you shouldn't be trusting any of the peddlers at this point. I mean, there were so many too. The whole Lanfear plot is actually very interesting in the last couple books because of all the peddlers who were over in the Aiel Waste that are like a bunch of freaking dark friends. And then we got Pot on Fane. So yeah, we're being taught to kind of not trust the peddlers. Now, what's interesting about this, my friend, is you have a group of Aes Sedai going from the tower. Remember, we've got the White Tower still, and then we've got the Rebel Aes Sedai, and they're split. So we have a group going to Kyrian. So the White Tower is sending their group to Kyrian, which is where it was reported that Rand was at. And Gawain is a part of the younglings. He's going there, and it is known. All right. The Rebel Aes Sedai, we just learned two point of view, not this point of view, but the last one. We learned that Elaine is not going. Min is going to Caemlyn. So you've got two groups approaching the Dragon Reborn, and one is going to Caemlyn, one is going to Kyrian. One is from the Rebel Aes Sedai, and one is from the White Tower. So that's interesting to kind of watch because we know that he went there, and it's sort of like, where do you go? Because they both could have went to the same place, and it could have been contentious, you know. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to kind of watch. And I'll tell folks, not that this is spoiler, but that's a big deal. These two groups that are going to meet with Rand are now reaching out to him. He's proclaimed himself to be the Dragon Reborn. Something big has happened because Morghese is either killed or
presumed dead.
Yeah, right. Gawain's upset by all of that.
Well, yeah, especially if he killed Elaine too, which we know isn't true, but
right.
Gawain, right?
Yeah, he doesn't know. Right.
Okay, so next chapter here is from Katarin's point of view, right? Or Katirin, is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, I don't actually. Katarine, maybe, or
Katarine. Yeah, Katarine. You're right.
Katarine?
The Aes Sedai, the Aes Sedai agree on an alliance with the Aiel. So Savannah agrees to go as long as she can see his face, which is Rand. The wise ones are escorted outside, and Katarine wonders what Gawain will say if he finds out that he and the younglings are only there to get them away from Tarvalin. She also wonders whether Rand will come willingly, which Galena thinks he might, because their delegation does him much honor. Katarine is sure Savannah will kill him given the chance, and Galena reminds her Eliada will not be pleased to have her plans disrupted. Katarine has been Black Aja for 12 years and only learned Galena is as well when they left Tarvalin. There are Aes Sedai following them a day behind, but she does not know whether other members of the Black Aja might be among them. I mean, it sounds like the Black Aja, they don't even know what's going on.
Well, it is kind of interesting. Here, let me read that part to you because so the of necessity, Black sisters kept themselves hidden even from each other. Their rare gatherings were held with faces covered, voices disguised, and then, as you said before, Galena, Katarina had only known two that she would recognize from the Black Aja. So there, it's sort of to protect them, but also it's to kind of keep them like you follow orders. You're given an order, you follow it. You don't deviate because you don't know who else is there and who has orders to look in on you and make sure you're following your orders. So,
yeah. Interesting. Though, you know, right. That one is short, but it is interesting just to get this idea that, hey, anybody could still be a Black Aja, which I think is kind of interesting. And even the Black Aja don't know who's Black Aja. So who's really controlling them and telling them what's going on? Right.
That is a great question. Because who is? Like, we now know the Forsaken are out, but Matt, she says she's been Black Aja for what, 12 or 13 years or whatever it was, 11.
Right.
And who was giving her orders back then? You know?
Right.
Interesting.
Okay, so we switch. We go to Savannah's point of view. Uh, Tereva, Thera, some of these names. Thoreva is upset about the way the Aes Sedai treated them, but Savannah is content that they agreed to the alliance. Desane critiques her plan, making Savannah feel threatened about her authority. She proclaims that they are no longer bound to the threefold land and must change, but Desane insists that planting a knife between Rand's ribs would be easier than dealing with Aes Sedai. Of course, the wise one has no notion of what Savannah intends to do with the Kara Karn. She was given a small cube by a strange wetlander and should use it once Rand is in her hands. I mean, these people just, I mean, what do these people think? Do they realize that Rand is the freaking dragon reborn? He's not just like some guy.
Right. Well, it's crazy. They all have their own like ambitions. Savannah just wants to be close to the strongest man, the most powerful, and maybe even to seduce him or to use him for her own gain. And when you look at the tower, some of that is the same as well, a little bit to a
Right.
certain extent. So yeah, I know. Who do they think they are, Matt? I mean, that's what we're all meant to.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
100%. Yeah.
what's going on here? So there's interesting bit. The stranger. So this stranger shows up and hands her a box. And that's just again one of these things that it's a breadcrumb that we're gonna have to pay attention to and remember that. And we actually what any good author does is he lays that down for you and then he makes you forget about it. And then he'll bring it back later and it's like, oh my God, which is really cool. So we'll see how that goes. They're suspicious of her intentions already. She just wants to see his face, but there's some weird stranger that we don't know if that stranger is connected to her. Is that stranger connected to the Black Aja, to the actual Aes Sedai? We don't know who this person is. No idea.
Right.
So
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Now this is the chapter. I was just kind of hoping it wasn't in here.
okay.
Because I felt like right away we kill any of the mystery, right, of Morghese. Which I mean, we didn't think she was dead because they even sort of say in the last book that
Right.
like, oh, well, we're not exactly sure, and so it's kind of like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
you know. And at the same time, it's almost like, okay, so now Morghese is basically going on the same thing as like Swan. Like Swan was disposed, kicked out, and she's on the run, and now it's like the same thing's happening with Morghese. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
But here we go. So Morghese converses with Elrond about his outside his palace, overlooking the gardens until pressing affairs of state call for him. She turns back to the apartment with Talonvor on her heels. He thinks that they should have gone to Ghealdan, or Ghealdan, right? As they pronounce it in the show now, right? And in the book, it's Ghealdan is the way Michael Kramer, says it, but it's Ghealdan in the show, which was no option for Morghese with the prophet and his mobs practically on Aliandre's doorstep. Talonvor says, I will not abandon you this side of death, Morghese, but you abandoned much when you abandoned Andor to Gabriel. Morghese knows no house in Andor would support her, so she needs foreign aid. Elrond has finally agreed that she needs soldiers from outside to retake Caemlyn. Linny and Brienne want to talk about Talonvor, but before Morghese can snap at them, Pedro Nile enters the room. He assures her that Elrond cannot give her the aid she seeks, but he will give her 5,000 children of the light if she but asks. Morghese wants to know why he would help her. He tells her that Gabriel is dead and the Dragon Reborn holds Caemlyn. Nile is sure that the Aes Sedai do the channeling for Rand and that he is no more than a puppet of the White Tower. Morghese says that she needs some time to think and that Nile will return in a day or two. When Pedro Nile leaves, Talonvor, Basil Gill, and Lamgwin dart in and tell her there were 30 men with the Lord Captain Commander. Talonvor says he was afraid for her, and Morghese snaps at him, so he leaves. They would have fought, and now they think they failed. She wants to apologize to Talonvor, and Brienne teases her again. Morghese hurls her goblet at the other two women and screams at her to get out. Shortly after, a young man in livery enters and introduces himself as Patir Conal from Market Chiron. He says he followed his uncle Jen to Amador, and when they heard about Morghese, they wanted to help her escape. Morghese asks him how things are in Andor, even though the boy wants to leave again after giving her news about the potential plan for escape.
You're right. So kind of a big drop that we are with
Mor-
Pedro and Niall
and
and
Morghese is still alive.
still alive, and the White Cloaks, and we're there. If you recall, in Camelin at one point, that was very important whether you were wearing red or white. Did you support the Queen? Were you a good Queen's man, or were you in favor of White Cloak intervention? Did you trust the Tower? All that kind of stuff. So those were some of the politics and some of the rumblings that were going on during Morghese's time in Book One of Eye of the World. And now it's ludicrous to think that she's going to get a group of White Cloaks to storm back into Camelin and take it back over. So she's checking on the state of things there. Talonvor, it's mentioned numerous times. Good looking. He's much younger. Leany is like, making these comments, but yeah, there's a whole list of like Leany quotes and sayings. Like Leany sayings are kind of a big deal on Twitter of Time, and I think it's fun to see people quote Leany. She's like old Nan, in
Right.
in a Game of Thrones. So
I just want to get my right here. Boom. Just Queen Morghese, right?
yeah,
Who's not been cast yet, right? At least not that we know
yeah,
of.
not that we know of, right? Yeah, yeah.
But I would have to imagine we obviously would see Morghese.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Pedro Niles' point of view, right? So
Yep.
Pedro Nile arrives at the Fortress of Light. What he told Morghese was his own interpretation of events that he believes. Balwer lets him know that there are papers that await his signature and Carden who awaits his presence in the audience chamber. Nile asks what Carden thinks he was called for, to which the Lord Inquisitor replies that he is to take care of the Aes Sedai in Sidar. Still, he is going to be sent to Altara. Niall thinks he could bind the nations together under his leadership to depose Rand. He sent emissaries to every land to point out the danger of a false dragon and planted other rumors. But the rabid lion, as he calls Rand, turned into a giant that moved like lightning. Now Niall tells Carden that Altara and Morande are about to be tormented by a plague of dragon sworn.
Right, all that unrest. Remember when we were with the Prophet, Masema, and
Mm-hmm.
Galad was getting the ship, right? I think, yeah.
Yes.
I got to be careful because I'm like a couple books ahead, so I'm like trying to not to like,
Don't spoil it.
you know.
Don't go spoiling stuff. As
Ooh, yeah. So that's some of the stuff that's being referenced there a little bit. The Dragon Sworn and the uprisings and the trouble. So yeah, Pedro Nile is his motives are to the reason he's kind of against Morghese, not against her, but like has been sort of is their alliance with the White Tower and the Tarvalin witches and their advisors and so on. So in Amadisia, they've kind of got control of the king there, and they're in it's a seat of power for them. So this would be cool for them to move into Camelin and help her retake that. But at the same time, he's really just keeping her there in his back pocket for a while until he decides what to do.
right.
So
Okay. Just two more here. So
mhm.
Masana's point of view, right? Masana is building an inverted tower of ivory dominoes, and she is proud of it because she did not use the power once. Cimaraj is with her in the room doing needlework. Masana feels uncomfortable around the women, although she matches her in strength. Both are waiting for Demandred. It has been 17 days since he went to Shao Ghul and now only informs them of a message. In that time, Masana has been to Shao Ghul herself, but the Dark One did not answer. Demandred then appears and tells them to wait until they are all there. Shortly after him, Grendel joins them, but Samael is busy in Ilion. They talk about Angrial, and Masana informs the others that the White Tower now has wards around its strongholds. They want to know about Demandred's message and whether it says they are going to kill Rand. Demandred quotes that the Dark One's exact words were, "Let the Lord of Chaos rule." Then he tells them everything, and Masana thinks it might work with luck.
Yeah, so this is interesting. Like the Forsaken, we start to get more of the Forsaken, and we learn about their plotting, that Sheo Ghul's important now. They're speaking to the Dark One, and these things are happening. So they also like why Demon You know, why is he the only one who can speak with the Dark One? And when they go to Sheo Ghul, they don't get anything. They're not spoken to. They weren't called there. So it's interesting how the politics, or I guess the ladder to Nablus, the up and down nature, it kind of keeps the Forsaken. It's like a it keeps them fighting among themselves, which sometimes helps Rand. You know, there's
Mhm.
almost too much chaos, but yet it is very well. They do work together out of fear, and I don't know what this person knows, and what is Samael doing. Ravine was just killed, and a lot of different things. So, yeah, um, it's cool to now get more about the Forsaken, because I feel like we were a little bit lost, before, like with Landfill, you don't get enough and you get so few. It's like so fragmented that you have to go back and do a refresher, which is why the spoiler edition, I'm going to be focused mainly on the Forsaken that were mentioned here, and kind of talk you through where we've been with them, and then also where we're going with them just in this book and a few books ahead, to help us kind of remember, and for veteran readers to think about, because it's really cool. And I honestly lose track. There's some 13 of them, and the stuff that's about to happen here in the next point of view is very interesting. Let me
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting too, by the way. It's like these Forsaken have been around forever. Like we're talking generation after generation after generation after generation, and the Dark One still can't win.
Mhm.
But it sounds like he kind of sucks.
Wow.
I mean, I'm
Wow.
just gonna go. I'm gonna go ahead and say it.
Right. And at one point, I can tell you something pretty cool about one of the Forsaken, and that very thing you just said. That very thing about like, hmm, how, or even at the pigeon at the top of the show, which was sort of like, how many times does the wheel turn? How many times will this go on for?
Right.
Um, what are the odds of, you know, certain outcomes? So yeah, that's a
Right.
really good point.
Okay. So finally, Asengar's point of view, right?
Mhm.
Osengar's, right? I guess. Osengar cannot stop himself from touching his face to make sure it is real. His face is younger than the one he had before, and ordinary, though he hates being ordinary. He was given the name Osengar before he woke up from his second sleep. The woman with him is Erengar. Both were names for dueling daggers after opening of the bore. When a Murdral appears, Erengar furiously complains about having been put into this body. The Murdral says it was the best that could be found in the Borderlands. When Asengar finds himself unable to channel, he thinks Erengar must have discovered the same. She launches herself with a fade, it catches her by the throat, and lifts her a foot off the ground. It tells them they have not been severed, but will not channel unless allowed to, and introduces itself as Shaidar Haran. It says she will adapt, and soon it will be like she never had any other body. If she continues complaining, she will be given to the other Miradral for their sport. Uh, tells it to let Arengar down, but it replies that it only obeys the Dark One. When Arengar agrees to submit to the Dark One's will, it finally sets her down again. Osengar thinks that her body is a rich joke. Shaidar Haran says that they were dead and are alive now to serve the Great Lord a second time. Osengar assures it that he is grateful, and after a second, Erengar nods. Shaidar Haran says that only it and the Dark One know they live, and if they succeed, they will live forever and be raised above all others. So to me, I pretty much knew sort of immediately that that these are the two Forsaken that were killed at the Eye of the World,
Okay.
reborn.
Reborn. Okay. Different faces. Yeah. And they're talking to Shadar Haran, and
Right.
they're at Sheo Ghul.
Yes.
Um, and we just had
I could be
Demandred there.
mistaken, but that's what it seems like to me.
Right. I get you. That's a good thought. Yeah, because again, they're given a task. Yeah, it does just say for right now that they are reborn, and I think a lot of people too also came to the conclusion that they must be someone who
Of
was
significance.
killed, right? That we might so you immediately start speculating about who was in the book so far that has been destroyed and given a second sort of rebirth and is talking to the dark one and stuff. So and given the opportunity to live forever and be raised above all others. If you fail, but you will not fail, will you? The half man then smiled. It was like seeing death smile. So yeah,
Yeah, there we go.
I
A lot to digest from this prologue. Yes, Morghese is in fact alive.
mhm.
People don't believe she is. Go on. Gawain thinks that Rand is behind it all. A lot of people think Rand should be silenced. Elaine's not allowed to go to Camelin.
Yep.
And the Dark One is talking again. Seems like
It seems
he
like things are
seems like there's rumblings at all levels. The Forsaken are having leadership
mhm,
issues.
right.
Two Forsaken, I believe, are reborn.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and you've got a fractured tower.
It is time for the Lord of Chaos to rule once again.
Yeah. Not a good thing, right? I mean, it seems dark. It seems like this is gonna be like Empire Strikes Back, sort of, you
Basically,
know?
100%. Yeah.
I mean, because we just killed Ravine and one of the stronger of the Forsaken. Bale fired him right out of Camelin, took him out. And yeah, so Rand is yeah, that'll be interesting too. Once we get into these next batch of chapters, we'll get back to Rand. We'll sort of figure out how he's feeling, what's going on with these groups that are headed to Camelin, what's happening with Mo Gideon and the training. What is it that Elaine and Nynaeve are learning? We learned that we knew that Elaine can create Tir'an Grial, which is super cool because now we have a talent that we can use to create something that non-channelers can use to do special things. So
Yes.
big deal.
Woo.
Yeah.
Craziness all around.
Right.
But that's okay. That's just the prologue, and then we will dive back into it. And I think I don't know that we have our I didn't put down our numbers of what we would be
Oh,
would be doing.
yeah. We can. What we do is Matt and I can talk about it. And we'll put it in the description for you guys. I'll do that,
Mhm.
and we can kind
It's
of look.
probably going to be. I think I from what I remember that because I'm on about chapter 7. I believe the first 3 chapters are big. So let's just go ahead and say chapters 1 through 3.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 through 3. Just to be safe, just to ease into
If
it.
we have new people, it's not as daunting. We try to keep it about 5 hours of a reading or
Hmm.
audiobook time per block. So let's just
Right.
go ahead and say chapters 1 through 3 of Lords of Chaos will be the next episode.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, and friends, what we'll do, we're gonna pop right into the extended edition here in just a little bit. We'll continue on with this prologue and a couple cool connections, and then I'll follow that up later. Without Matt, I will dive into our spoiler edition, which should be fun, and we'll focus on some of these Forsaken. So
Absolutely. So
yeah.
awesome as always. So we want to thank you for answering the call. Our next episode, we will be discussing Lord of Chaos chapters 1 through 3.
Yep. If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a message at thehornofvalir@gmail.com.
We will see you soon. And remember that the grave is no bar to our call.